Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay, it's recording.
Brilliant. Really nice to meet everyone. Thank you for coming in and sharing in this time with each other. I imagine there's a big sense of isolation from what we've all felt over the last 3 months, but maybe also a sense of video call fatigue as well in all of this. So it's really cool that people have been able to get together, and we're just going to try and support each other, not with necessarily hard facts about what the industry is doing and all that side of it all, but more so about, how we're finding the challenges here. And if we have heard anything, that's always really useful, just to pool knowledge and learn from each other. We are going today to discuss 3 areas, and each discussion point's got about 15 minutes. However, many people have sent questions in advance or areas that they want to know about. So we're going to try and work through those as per the areas that they're in. So discussion area 1, which will be about the latest information around the sector, how different stakeholders are responding, is anyone having issues getting paid, and what are people hearing. Discussion 2 is going to be sharing tips with each other and the way you've navigated the industry during COVID-19. And then discussion 3 is going to be plans for the future and how people are preparing for hopefully a normal return. So with that in mind, what would happen is we'll answer everyone's points in each section. I'll give you a kind of a brief overview from my point first of all as the chair, but then it's very much get everyone to talking, and I'd really like to ensure that everyone has their chance. So if rather than jumping in, if it's a way to kind of put hands up or just to put something in chat and just to kind of respect the no talking over each other, which I'm sure is standard. I'm sorry for kind of over explaining video chat. Okay, so first of all, my name's Jacob and I'm the founder of Offploy. We help people with criminal convictions to secure meaningful, mentored and sustainable employment. And COVID's hit us quite tough, and we've had to make 3 redundancies, but we are also pivoting to a more of a digital service. And we've got less than 10 people, I think, roughly. Are you happy to do round the table introductions, Camilla?
Yeah, I think most people have put who they are and stuff in the chat, but maybe just if you are contributing, then just to do a really quick, like, who you are before you say whatever you're going to say.
Even better. That sounds great. Okay, so should we jump straight into discussion area 1? I've realised I've been talking really fast, so I'm going to slow that down a bit, and then from discussion area 1, we'll see what comes out from people's points. So the latest information around the sector. How are different stakeholders responding? Is anyone having issues getting paid? And what are people hearing? So from Offploy's perspective, I've read an article that unemployment is looking like it's going to be 3 million. It's potentially going to hit 4 million. That'll be quite a high number of unemployment. For me, that gets me worried, thinking that are people with criminal convictions going to be prioritised once more? We were in a wonderfully low unemployment market previously, where employers, it was an employees market, it was a candidates market, and for now it's going to become an employers market, where when employers are hiring, they're going to have more choice. And when people have more choice, do they recruit from socially excluded areas? We're not having issues getting paid in the sense that none of the contracts have been renewed, so no one's paying us anything. We've heard that, for us, we've heard that things are recovering a bit more now, and that we will probably be back in our service within probably 2 weeks. So I'm feeling a bit stronger about that. Has anyone else had any similar experiences?
Yeah, we've had a similar thing with, I run a job board for disabled job seekers. So my concern is very similar to yours, in that one of our arguments, if you like, or persuasion techniques before was about filling skills gaps. And there were skills gaps, and we were saying, well, you need talent, we've got talent, there's a good match. That argument isn't going to work because there's so many people looking for so many jobs. And I do think that D&I has slid down the agenda for a lot of employers. It's kind of, very sadly, in 2020, it seems to be one of those things that if everything's okay, we've got nothing else much to do, we'll look at D&I. But actually, if there's a crisis, it's the first thing to go. So I think what we're doing is we're using a different angle now, which is saying, the world of work has changed since COVID. We're looking at more people working from home, more people working flexibly, working in different ways. And actually what you need to do is look at disabled people, because we are used to working in different ways and working from home. And so it's trying to find a different angle. They're all true, but it's about which one you emphasize to employers. And but yeah, we've had a lot of contracts not renewed because no one's recruiting.
Of course. And does anyone else work with disabled people in this group?
Oh, just
Yeah,
me.
just you?
And us guys, essentially Ricky, for those who have not had the opportunity of meeting, co-founder of Working for Health, specialising in supporting people with lived experience of mental illness to access, secure and maintain employment to form part of their recovery. I guess for us, we adapted really quickly. I think I've spoken to Jacob away from this, but we adapted really quickly, and we managed to get the whole team kind of operational from home, and have kind of fulfilled 100% of our contract, which is again is quite incredible, really. So we've everything has gone virtually, and it's fair to say that the feedback has been okay. It was really good at the start, but it feels a lot of people are getting all kind of Zoom fatigued and screen fatigued. So, you know, it is quite challenging. But what we did is adapted really quickly, and put this kind of COVID contingency to our funders, and we was able to somewhat negotiate a retention support sum, which will allow us to keep going, not at the rate that we did previously, but it allows us to keep our head above water. I think just going to what Jane said, just about, it's almost like an employer's market. We've been quite fortunate, and we've recruited through this process, and we've managed to get incredible value for money. So what we had is we need a financial controller, and we've been able to get hold of an accountant, for example. So for us, it's kind of been really beneficial. But yeah, tricky times ahead. We totally get that. But I guess over the last 3 or 4 months, we've been quite privileged, I guess, in being able to lift everything virtually. And it's fair to say that we will probably continue 40, 50, maybe 60% virtually in the very early stages. And I was asked to see if we could adapt and adapt further in order to bring, I guess, our clients back face to face, because that's been the evaluation and the feedback that people need people. Zoom is good. So what we've done really bizarrely is we've managed to secure an allotment, which is very local to us. So we've kind of reached out to our connections and contacts, and we're hopeful that people are expressing their CSR, and are going to allow us to create an outdoor space, which will allow us to bring people together much sooner. So fingers crossed we can get that over the line quite quickly, and start delighting people again, I guess.
And sorry, Ricky, are you worried about any, and I don't know if anyone else feels this way, about kind of what your responsibility is as an employer in exposing people potentially to COVID or the reinfection rate? Is that something you've had to take into consideration in all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we've been a little more fortunate in some ways, because as an organisation, we specialise in, I guess, supporting people into the world of health and social care, and as a result of that, we deliver the likes of the care standards and various other training elements that give people that entry-level qualification to be able to go into or enter the world of health and social care. And what we felt locally for us is the market in the world of health and social care has increased. So, there's been about 7 or 8 of our candidates that have left us to actually enter the world of work through this process, which is again is quite fortunate that we've been in this area. So, it feels as people that have holded themselves, but there's people that have just kind of reached out and wanted to progress irrespective, and have gone and done business. Sorry, Jacob.
No, it's fine. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Ricky. Has anyone else had any experiences around how they've had to respond to COVID, and whether they've had challenges getting paid, or have they heard anything about what the social sector needs to be doing in regards to employment at this stage? Is everyone still delivering their services, for example, right now? Or has anyone had to pause their service delivery at the moment? Lauren?
I can go. Oh, sorry, Lauren.
No, it's fine.
Oh, go on.
Okay. So, hi, just those who don't know me, so I'm Ellie, I'm founder of FledgeLink. So, predominantly, FledgeLink is a free self-development, careers guidance and employment app for kids from the age of 13. So it's all about sort of supporting, leveling the playing field and supporting people to get equal access to that knowledge, to work opportunities. And we've so it's been a really interesting time for us, because in some ways, like Fledgling's come into its own as a result of lockdown, because suddenly there's no careers provision delivered face to face. So now people are looking for digital ways in which to engage young people in career support and guidance. The challenge has been we're just sort of really switching on our business model, so our revenue generating model, which is directly from employers. So employers will pay us to attract, engage and hire through the Fledgling Cap and the other things that we have. What we're finding is that either it's impossible to talk to like early career teams because they've all been furloughed, and so actually physically getting to speak to anyone has been difficult. And then when we have, they're either just still dealing with like the current sort of the crisis and how they switch their sort of assessment process to online and all of that, and still actually recruiting for September, such that it's been really difficult to start having those planning meetings with them going forward. So that's been one thing that we found. And the second thing is, I thought that there might be more of an opportunity to embrace change and innovation now. Think, okay, well, this is a chance to do something different. And what we're finding is that employers are sticking with what they know, and existing, job boards or whatever it is that they used last year, because, well, I'm projecting, but it might be just for ease. It might be because they know what those budgets look like and that service looks like, and so they can better predict what they're going to get at the end of it. So that's also as an innovative product that is still startup and 2 years in really. That's been a particular challenge for us as a business at the moment.
Thank you, Ellie. And how about you, Lauren?
Hi. So yeah, I guess like a lot of other people, a lot of our stuff has had to go on hold. So we deliver employment and training and well-being courses for people. So bringing groups of people together, that's just a big fat no, that can't happen. And a big thing for us is that we link people into volunteering placements with quite cool places, so like the university or National Trust. That's a huge element of the programs that we run, so we're going to have to think so differently about how that's going to look moving forwards. So for example, someone like the university, they're now remapping how their office spaces are going to look in the future when they get everybody back in. They're not going to be taking into consideration that they're going to have to plonk a volunteer in there as well from our program. So we really need to start thinking very differently about that. We did start the year saying that we were going to need a bigger boat because we had so many contracts kind of in the book. And so then we're going to have to think how we can tweak things to deliver them possibly differently. Some are being receptive, some are not, from a little bit later in the year. But another thing for us is when you were saying about office space and keeping your staff safe and your teams, our office is not one that you would consider being kind of distancing friendly. It's too small. So we need to find other options for how things can happen. We've all been brilliant at doing everything differently so far, and I know that we'll do it. It's just everybody is going to be looking for different office space that's bigger, and I think there's going to be a lot of competition for that kind of stuff.
And it sounds like for the two of you, you've both been there's delays basically either way, there's delays down the line. Is that going to impact your organisation in terms of your stability right now? Is there anything that could be done to challenge those delays? So one would be, you know, you're waiting for people not to be furloughed. I think Ellie said the same in terms of these people you're trying to get to have you use your services, which are innovative and new in all of this, and that's a scary thing for an institution. And if all their colleagues are furloughed, you're going to struggle to get through to them. Will the delays affect your organisation extremely adversely? Do you have time with which to deal with that? And then if I may go on to after that, Dana, you've got a construction industry organisation. It would be keen to know if that's an industry that's picking up now, and if you're facing the same delays as well.
For us, Jacob, it's less that we can't get hold of people.
Okay.
It's just that if stuff that we were going to deliver face to face, we're now saying, look, we've tweaked it, we've adapted it, we can now do it online. Some are saying, yeah, okay, let's have a chat about how it can work. And others are saying, we're not ready to think about that because we're just so busy trying to just figure out how to open the doors. So that's the thing for us.
That's really, it feels quite extreme, doesn't it? That everyone's struggling so much that they can't deal with anything new at the moment. Their plates are full, basically,
Yeah.
and that's how we're trying to tackle that. Are you getting the same, Ellie?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, employers, you know, honestly, like some will say to us, we get that this is the future, and what you've built is the future where we need to head to. But yeah, come back to us next year.
Well,
there might not be one next year, but yeah.
That's the hard reality of a startup, isn't it? That you need crumbs to get by, and then all of a sudden something seems to come off. Sorry, Dana, could I ask about the construction industry then? Are you waiting for delays from people, or are you noticing an uplift at the moment in your services? And I'm wondering if it's sector specific, guys, rather than the universities are delayed, but the construction industry might be a bit different.
Happy to share on the construction industry. It's an interesting industry because it works across so many very specific specialisms and typologies. So we're seeing a mixed picture, I would say. Certainly the announcements from government about public sector work and infrastructure coming through is helpful, but there's a whole part of the industry that's dealing more with sort of commercial side, and particularly for the southeast, with residential, sort of large residential private housing. So we're seeing certain parts of the industry kind of drop off completely, and other bits kind of preparing for next year. I would say that many of the companies are still in this kind of moment of trying to work out themselves in terms of what might happen next. But there is a kind of caution, I would say. Lots of organisations talking about sort of freezing recruitment and that kind of thing. Partly in terms of what their future workload is going to look like, but also sort of concerns about trying to onboard people while we're still working from home, sorting out offices, how do you work on site, that kind of thing.
Anyone got any thoughts on that, like, in terms of just the construction sector, or how it might translate to their sector? I can see people are in the entertainment industry and the entertainment sector. I know Emmerdale's stopped filming for a while, which has been terrible for us lot up here, but I'm just saying, as a wider sector, other sectors, is anyone else feeling the same pinch?
Is it what?
Entertainment sector. I mean, it's the ground to a halt, obviously, because
let's give it another 10 then.
Oh, I can hear someone else talking. Is there an echo on my line, or is that someone else talking?
I think you're ready to go ahead now, Harriet. Sorry about that.
So we work in the entertainment industry, so primarily film, TV, and music. And our focus has always been on new entrants. So we, when Bojo did his whole everyone stay home, then that kind of brought down the shutters on new recruitment. So we had those who were in the pipeline, they actually started in April, which was good. So it was quite interesting to see that whole onboarding new staff remotely. So, and having to have them young people adjust to that working remotely, which they did really quickly. A bit like what Ricky was saying earlier, we made the transition as a business to work online really easily, because just my motto in general is if I can't get it on an app on my iPad, then we don't need it. So everything was in the cloud anyway. We were already using Zoom for our training, and I think we were initially a bit apprehensive about doing like 2 days worth of training online, because that's quite intensive, but our apprentices absolutely love it. We get much higher engagement, and for them it's like you're seeing the same people that you saw face to face, but why is it that it's better online? But I think because they're at home, and two, it's focused and they've got their breakout rooms and all of that, it just works. But I think the government announces huge 1.5 billion worth of support for the arts and cultural sector last night. So, I mean, it's yet to be seen how that will translate into, what projects will receive funding. But it does mean that there will be some activity. And I think there's about 880 million of that is in grant funding, which I suspect will help some of those smaller arts organisations keep their doors open. And Rishi Sunak is due to announce some more incentives to encourage employers to take on young people. We also looked at pivoting our business to have an offer for existing staff, because we're in the skills business and there's going to be a lot of kind of training needs. But a bit like what Lauren and Ellie were saying earlier, is that people's heads are in different places right now, so they're not necessarily looking to get involved in new stuff. They're more just, which is totally understandable, because as a business I'm not necessarily ramping up new initiatives. It's more about kind of keeping your business afloat. So I think you have to recognize that largely where you are is where your clients will be, and in terms of and I think that helps you keep things, or well, it's helped me keep things in perspective, that not everyone is gung-ho. It's literally just trying to maintain the status quo. But I think Lauren mentioned earlier about workspaces, like we're going in tomorrow to look at our workspace. We gave up one of our units, our training unit, just because our landlord, London Borough of Newham, didn't offer any rent relief. So when we couldn't justify spending full rent on 2 units, because moving forward most of the training would be online anyway, so we just have to use our office space to double that up as a training space, but just having to make it COVID safe. But the guidance keeps changing, so 1 minute you're preparing for 2 meters and they were like, it's not going to work in this space, then it's like 1 meter with precautions, so you think there's still hope that it could work. But you just have to go with the information as it comes and do the best that you can with what you've got, basically. But Emmerdale is back filming, so those of you who are fans, as is EastEnders.
I did hear about that, so thank goodness. Thank you for those points. I got 2 or 3 points from that, which maybe others can give us their thoughts on. Has anyone noticed an increase in response funding in their sector specifically, or in the areas they work in, which might help their organisation? Do we feel that your sector is largely supported by the government or not? And in terms of office space, is anyone having to consider uprooting completely and getting rid of offices? Or, as an example, Offploy, we've completely gone officeless as an organisation now, so our overheads have dropped significantly. Has anyone else gone down that route?
We've all been working from home all along, so we never had offices. So that's been great. We've felt a bit smug, actually, when people are saying, oh, working from home, oh, well, we've been doing this forever. And the benefits of that are not just reduced overheads in terms of office space, but also it means that we can attract talent from anywhere. So we don't have to say, if we want to recruit someone, you've got to be within travelling distance of this location. We've got someone in Scotland, someone in Devon, me in London, others in the Midlands. So that's quite good. And I think the fact that more people are working from home, and actually some quite enjoying working from home and don't want to go back to 5 days a week in the office and all the commute, is good news for us, in that if more jobs are available to work from home, then that makes it easier for disabled people. Some disabled people prefer to work from home. So I'm looking at that as a bit of a positive. I was also just going to say, actually, in response to what Ellie was saying about employers, that maybe a bit of, I don't know whether it's good news, I think it's a bit of hope, is that our experience, because we work across all sectors, was at the beginning of the lockdown. It was all about recruitment freezes, D&I's gone off the agenda, talent acquisition people are on furlough, so they can't talk to you. It was all kind of quite dire and awful. But then more recently, I've noticed that actually people are coming back from furlough. So some of our talent acquisition people who've been off have now come back. And some more enlightened employers are beginning to say, this is an opportunity to do things differently. And actually, we don't just want to go back to the old normal, we want to find a new and better normal. So I think on a positive note, the more enlightened employers, and those are ones that are likely to be interested in what we do, all of us do anyway, are beginning, some of them are beginning to be a little bit more open to maybe the way we did things before wasn't the best, and maybe we can use this as an opportunity to do things better and differently. So I'm feeling less pessimistic than I was at the beginning of lockdown, and thinking that actually maybe now there are ears that are listening to what we've got to say, and a realization that actually the world can be better than it was before. I know it'll never erase all the damage that COVID has done, but maybe we can grab some silver linings out of it.
Absolutely. Has anyone got any silver linings that they've found from COVID?
I suppose I could share one, which I also know is having worked in organisations where it's actually impossible to do your work physically distanced. I kind of understand a lot of pressures that other people might be facing, but so for us, we make change. We basically connect individuals with predominantly and now solely online volunteering opportunities with social enterprises. Now, what that has meant for us is, of course, there's some silver linings for us in the sense that a lot of people do actually have more free time, even if they are still working, because they're working from home, less commute, that kind of thing. But in addition to that, of course, there have been people that are furloughed and other things which we can provide with opportunities to hopefully gain experience, enhance their CV, and do those kinds of things while they're in that situation. But I think from some of the ways that and again, because we're a bit of a younger organization, we can be a bit more agile, not having the overheads and everything like that, so our teams are all remote anyway, is that from a business perspective, we are just increasingly thinking about almost just taking the context as it's given and thinking, okay, from a business opportunities perspective, where do the opportunities really lie, and almost testing out as agilely as we can various models of monetization through the different services we either provide or slight variations on it. So again, because we're younger, we can, and smaller in a sense, we can afford to be more agile. But for us, it's also not just looking at that as a short-term solution, but does this crisis propel some of these changes more quickly than they would have otherwise taken place if we didn't have this crisis in the first place, even though the trends were in this direction, remote working, that kind of thing as well.
That's a really good point. It might have just pushed us into remote working, maybe, and it's a way to, we've seen an entire sector. The probation service has gone remote. That's incredible. You wouldn't ever picture that. So I'm saying that big sectors, big industry, public sector is actually looking more remote than ever now. Well, that's discussion area 1 complete. Mindful of time, we are still on time, which is great. Well done, everyone. And so we've got discussion area 2, which is going to be 15 minutes, and it's going to be tips on ways that we've all navigated the industry during COVID-19, and we've already seen some really good nuggets of information coming through from what people are doing. Just kind of to kick it off, and I'm hoping this kind of, please just jump in after this, but like Offploy has very much kind of gone completely digital. We've upgraded our CRM system so we can better manage our candidates, our colleagues' productivity. Video chats is really exciting. We've actually converted our candidates' travel budget into a digital budget. And we've found websites such as Acts 435, which I believe is a Christian website, where you can request funding for small items for people you support, from a bus pass to a laptop if it's less than 150 quid, or there's quite a few bits out there where you've really got an opportunity to digital up your candidates you support, or your service users, or whatever the right term is, to get them to access in digital, so that we're all, well, our team can now support 3 times as many people, based on not having to deal with rooms, people turning up, booking the right place, and getting this bit. It's literally call after call after call if needs be, but we're not a video call factory, so we'll also be mindful of colleagues' well-being there. has anyone else seen like any ideas how they're going to navigate COVID coming back? It's great to see that Rick is already up and running with his, and that things aren't different from many other organisations. Sam, Evad, can I start with you? Is that okay on dealing with self-employed people in all of this, and whether there's still that appetite and demand there, and what you might be doing differently to support them?
See, we were sat here quietly because he was eating biscuits and making a lot of noise.
I could hear it through the muted microphone.
I know, that's why I was giving him the look. It was like, for goodness sake, boy. Yeah, self-employment-wise, we're starting to get busier again. At the beginning of lockdown, we had to set up a new project called Seize, where we were doing advocacy support, because a lot of our disabled guys were really struggling with the fact that they were inside, they couldn't get the food that they wanted, they couldn't get their normal delivery slots, the benefits were changing, and a lot of the guys that were in rural areas that use the libraries every day to access the internet, to check their bank accounts, to actually order their food and check their journals, they couldn't use the libraries, and how that made quite a big difference, because in some of the areas down here, I don't know what it's like where you are, but we can't get a phone signal. So if you can't get a phone signal and you can't get on your journal, and then you can't see what your benefit is, it was causing major barriers to life in general. So we set up an advocacy project to support those people. And the other area that we supported was within school, because a lot of the kids at home trying to do schoolwork with a disabled parent trying to run a business, and the parent was trying to help the child but not understanding, or there was too much schoolwork. So we were doing a lot of advocacy work between schools and families. So we've diversified quite a bit in that respect. On the self-employment side, it's actually given people a chance to take stock. So we've set up something called Sammy Den on Facebook, and it's all about people coming in and talking about what their problems are. We have a speaker every Thursday lunchtime, sadly it's me this week, where people are invited in to chat about their business or a problem they're facing. I'm going in to talk about founder syndrome, because apparently I suffer from that, but I don't see that. It's my baby, I don't see what the problem is. So it's that kind of just general chat and just general kind of nice bits, isn't it? So we are really busy. One thing that we did this morning is contacted 2 of our main contracts and just go, what's going on? We've not heard from you. We know you're all furloughed, but you need to tell us what's going on so that we've got a clue. And both of those conversations have resulted in work this morning, because one's gone, oh, we didn't realise you were working. Yeah. Brilliant. Here's 3 appointments. So just, I think my tip of the morning is reconnect with everybody.
If you've got any contracts and you haven't spoken to your contracts manager or partner in a while, reconnect with them. Be surprised what work might come your way.
How many of us need to reconnect with our contract managers, as in how many are waiting for them to get in touch with us?
Yeah, don't wait.
Okay.
Yeah, don't wait.
That's prompted me, thank you.
Yeah.
Right, okay, and that's brought something to light in terms of the connectivity. I never even, living, I mean, I live in West Yorkshire, so we only just got phone signal a few years ago, but I'm kind of curious, that does anyone else think any other issues that I just assumed the accessibility to IT was having the IT. Is there any kind of, as we go to a digital service, are there limitations that we need to support our candidates with, or the people we support with, that we need to think about?
I think the biggest thing for me was when I contacted, sorry, I shouldn't bitch, but I'm going to. When I contacted both the Citizens Advice Bureau and the COVID-19 helpline, they suggested that my clients actually gave me, because I'm sitting in Bournemouth, their bank details so that I could check their bank balances for them. I thought that was brilliant. As Billy the burglar, I was going to go away with their overdrafts, but that was the most legitimate thing they'd come up with. It was like, wow, hello. We need to actually help these people access, even if it meant opening a library and giving them 1 day a week in the library and the librarian sitting right on the other side of the building, but just give them that access. So yeah, it's huge. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that sounds, again, just big challenge, like accessing banking and basic services that we think we thought we take for granted, basically. Lauren, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, we've managed to distribute a little bit of kit to people, so laptops or phones, sorted out people with MiFi, which I didn't know that was different to Wi-Fi, but
what is MiFi? Sorry,
So I don't know. I left the team to it. They did it. I just nodded and went, yeah, okay. But getting somebody, like a dongle so they can get internet at home, you'd think it'd be that simple, but it isn't. There was like a whole 3 people it took, and we're not complete internet wallies in the team, but it took 3 of the team to get this guy set up with his laptop and getting onto the internet. And that's for the people who were lucky, because we could give 20 laptops and Wi-Fi out to people who we work with, but they don't know how to turn it on, and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to surf the internet. So there's a challenge there in terms of training those people. There's the safety elements, there's your confidence. So we've got a whole bunch of people who, they might have the stuff, but they just don't know how. They don't know how to use it, and that's a huge barrier.
Is anyone else trying to get their candidates, their service users, back up to engaging with them via introducing new means of IT or communication? And any thoughts there from anyone? Okay, and then how about the physical going back? And Ricky, I was wondering if you could just give us a little bit more on this in terms of, is anyone having to deliver physical services, which is really interesting? And if you are, kind of what precautions you're having to put in place, Ricky, in terms of with your service users as well, for getting them to come in and see you, how you're having to sort your office spaces out, what you're having to do with regards to sanitation, multiple uses of the same equipment. How are you getting around that? You're muted, Ricky.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's a difficult one, very difficult. And we're kind of planning through the COVID secure process now. But again, as kind of Eric mentioned earlier, it's just changing. We got this, what we felt, this beautiful listed building pretty much ready to launch and tell the world and show the world. And then we realized very quickly that it's the most COVID unsecure premise that you could have. So it's very, very difficult for us. In terms of physically delivering, we're not anticipating doing any of that, and I think the common response from funders is kind of September time. So what we are trying to do is, as mentioned earlier, trying to utilise some outdoor space so we can start that process in a kind of small kind of bubble sense, I guess. Internally, still not quite sure how we're going to do this, but a couple of thoughts we've had is looking at obtaining a 360 virtual tour of the building. And what that would mean is that people would essentially be able to have a look online and navigate through the building. I don't know if anybody's seen the virtual tours, but they're quite cool in that certain elements of the virtual tours, such as the the COVID secure process, you can highlight and click on, which then will give you information, advice and guidance on what we need to be doing within the building. So we're kind of working through various things with staff in terms of how we go about the phased return back, because I think again, the general consensus, and I'm sure the COVID secure process will mean that we'll go out to consultation with staff as well and figure out what people's thoughts and feelings are specifically with returning. But it's almost people are quite fearful and anxious about returning back to the new normal as they was going out and trying to create, this new way of working. So it's tricky. I mean, we do have, I think the environment will allow us to deliver, but again, it's going to be probably 30% of what we did historically. But in sort of conjunction with our outdoor space as well, we're hoping we can get clearer and again, just try and utilise the funders we're working with, which will enable them to help us navigate what we need to be doing. So, I'm quite confident with a mix of outdoor space, internal space, and online space. We hopefully could get back to delivering, relatively full capacity, really.
It's really encouraging to see that both yourself and Sam have basically worked with your funders during this time and being able to secure like ongoing funding so that business as usual. And in terms of adapting the spaces, it seems like everything you're saying is actually quite logical, common sense on how to prevent the spread of COVID and make people feel safe, have a lot of a sense of it's up to you whether you want to do this and you feel comfortable. The virtual tour is an incredible idea. My doctors do it and it's really cool because I can go in all the like different inspection rooms, not inspection rooms, what are they called? Doctors' rooms, and it's really cool. Consultate, that's the one. Inspection, that sounds. Anyway. So one thing I would be keen to know is: has anyone got any central points of information that they access in terms of that? Say, here's what you're doing with COVID right now. Here, it's 1 meter today, guys. No, it's 2 meters. No, it's this whole. Is there somewhere that is kind of just definitive that anyone's using or keeping an eye on, apart from like the Sun, or whichever newspaper that throws it out there? No? Is it literally a case of let's just see what's in the newspapers today as the guidance? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just, because there's so much information out there. I think sometimes I listen to Bojo's open mic sessions on 5 o'clock. But then there's people on like I'm part of membership groups that I'm part of, like Association of Education Providers. So I follow them on LinkedIn and get digests on what's happening in the skills sector. Same with like the Creative Industries Federation. So we've done a few roundtables. So kind of those three spots of information tend to be, and we get alerts from the Department of Education as well because we deliver apprenticeships. But just like to pick up on what Ricky was saying is that we also, I think the government introduced further education colleges and providers to be doing some face-to-face delivery with their students from June. We had a chat to our students and they weren't for that, and neither were we, to be honest. So we're looking possibly at September, but even then it will be delivered. It's going to be led by the students themselves as opposed to us mandating that you have to come in on this day, because a lot of them aren't actually returning to work until October, some not even until January. So it's kind of putting that emphasis. There's no point in us demanding that you come in and do some training when actually you're not even going into the office to do stuff. So yeah, I was just building on what Ricky was saying.
It's a really good point. I mean, at what point do we, are we mandating that people come in and see us and potentially they might not feel 100%? There's all sorts that go on behind. I mean, so on a personal level, I don't feel comfortable coming back until maybe February, March time, as an example, in terms of a physical service. And I've said that to the team, and some are saying, but I want to go speak to employers on off-employees' behalf. And then it's like, well, let's try and work something out then. But I'm probably way cautious compared to, let's say, some of our colleagues who are ready to go back tomorrow. And that's fine. That's everyone's interpretation of all of this. Is anyone worried that their commissioners will penalise them, or that their colleagues will feel unsupported if they do or don't bring people back straight away, or do or don't begin a physical service straight away? Does anyone think there'll be repercussions for them as an organisation? Oh, sorry. There you are.
My daughter loves this feature. When with family, she loves to mute me. But I'm a little bit cautious about Ofsted because we fall into the scope for Ofsted from like September onwards, and because the government wants you to do like some face-to-face delivery, I'm a little bit cautious about that because it's not going to happen. I don't think this side, at least not this year. But I do also think that because of the circumstances that we're in, there is no precedent. So I think it's going to be really hard to make some judgments, whether even I dialed into an HR workshop, like on changes of employment law and etc., and just understanding what the rights were, what my rights are as an employer, as well as, how to best support my staff. And I think it's definitely much more collaborative. There isn't a way necessarily to be mandating and forcing people, because if you can show that you can do your job at home and you can make the necessary adjustments, then, there shouldn't really be any problems. Although I do see that some of our younger apprentices want to get back into the office space because their setup isn't necessarily conducive to home working. They might be in shared accommodation, for example, so their bedroom is now also their office, and they don't necessarily have access to the same facilities as, say, some of our older apprentices who, you know, they've got homes or whatever. So I guess it varies from one person to the next.
There's a lot of moving parts, isn't there, in all of this? And I think the reason we're all on this call together is that there are no right answers at the moment, and it's really kind of waiting for that. You know, this is what the employment law says. This is what your commissioners can and can't request of you as an organisation. Just kind of like the last question around this area point, unless anyone's got any other points. Has anyone got any other points or questions for sharing tips and ways to navigate? Yeah, Dana?
Yeah, just a quick thought, just reflecting on what's been said. I don't feel nervous about repercussions. In fact, I feel quite confident in a sense. And that's partly because of this lack of clear leadership around what needs to happen and how it needs to happen. But I think there's a bit of an elephant in the room. You know, many of us work with quite vulnerable groups, and certainly the information that's starting to come through about who is more susceptible in terms of whether they get ill, etc., etc. And that's something in terms of how we deal with this that isn't really being talked about. But I think it's an opportunity now to kind of raise that and push back a bit, because there are differential sort of impacts of, you know, the kinds of work that you're doing, who might be more susceptible and who may well be more susceptible to the illness itself.
It's a really good point, and I suppose you're the expert in the cohort you support, as it were, so you could be the leader in that situation. As long as we've all got maybe a rationale behind what we're doing and how we're doing it, a commissioner or a service or whoever it is, it would be unreasonable, I think, at any point. It'd be far too unreasonable in the immediate future for any commissioner to berate or to not support our services based on how we choose to deliver this service going forward. That feels safe for us, our team, and just as importantly, the people we're there supporting. It'd be really interesting to see where we can start to group that or notice kind of best practices for all of that. I'd be keen to know if anyone sees anything either that's sector specific or anything that's even social enterprise leader specific. If anyone picks anything up, please do share it afterwards, because that'd be really powerful for us sorry, I'm just dropping my phone, to really group together and have something to fall back on a bit, at least when we're talking to commissioners. Because Dana, that comment you just said gave me so much confidence to be able to go to my commissioner and say, actually, you don't know what you're doing either at this moment. So, you know, this is why we're doing it this way, and let's talk it through. But that's, you know, positive or not relationship, it's still a good approach to go for. Okay, so they're the ways that people are looking at navigating COVID. I appreciate a lot of it's up in the air. Some people have been carrying on since day one and pivoting what they do. Some people are planning for the future, and I appreciate that, you know, best laid plans might not necessarily go to plan, but at least we've got an idea of where we're going. And if there's, you know, this call's recorded so you can revisit it to see what other people have spoken about. Should we go to our final discussion area, which is apparently about 10 minutes long, and then we are wrapping up our calls for the day, if that's okay. I've realised the time, Camilla.
Yeah, it might be just a few minutes now.
Just a few minutes.
I think on kind of going forwards, and also how we want to stay in touch. If we do want to stay in touch, we're keen for that to happen, and we'll if everyone's happy, we will copy everyone into an email after this, so we can definitely keep in touch. I know with previous calls, WhatsApp groups have been set up, and it's just been a way for people to keep in touch. But yeah.
Okay. Well, keeping in touch, obviously, are we going to go for a group email? I mean, is there any particular way people want to keep it? For example, I'm not a big fan of WhatsApp, so I'm not expecting everyone else to be either, but it's fine either way what people want to do to keep in touch afterwards, be it an email chain or another group method. How do you want to pick that up, Camilla?
Yeah, I mean, initially we'll just send after this. Once I've got the recording as well onto the YouTube channel, we'll just send an email around with all of your email addresses copied in. There's quite a few people who couldn't make it, who wanted to also be involved, who I'll send the recording to. If people are happy, and then the ball's in your court, really. If you want to, I'm sure people want to individually contact people as well. So just take it from the email chain, if that's okay.
So we've spoke about quite a few ideas on how people are going to go ahead with all of this. I think the biggest element of all of this then is kind of what's people's how hopeful are people for the future, for the short and medium term, in terms of, are we all going to be here in next week at least, and then let's build from there, you know, and let's plan that out. Like, just generally, if anyone can chip in, like how hopeful they are for the future of their organisation responding to COVID, the resilience. I mean, we're all entrepreneurial leaders. Resilience is built into what we do and who we are. Are we all feeling that at the moment? Are we all feeling pretty resilient and ready to go ahead and forge ahead?
I think short term, I'm feeling quite optimistic and resilient.
Brilliant.
But I think it's the uncertainty. You know, if there is a second wave, and that looks extremely likely, and if following that second wave there's then a long and deep recession, then I think we're all in the proverbial, aren't we? Really, you know, and not in a good way, because if the economy crashes for a long time, there aren't going to be jobs for any of the people we're supporting.
Is there? Yeah, absolutely. Is there an argument, and I don't know if people know this, that there's more funding for socially excluded groups in recessions, in times of depravity, and in times of a struggling economy? I mean, I know it's just printed government money anyway, but I'm on about, is there more support when there are harder times, though?
Rarely for disabled people, because you know, disabled people are the first to lose out. So things like benefits get cut, social care gets cut. So actually, it's the opposite way around, that we get less funding. I mean, I'm feeling personally relatively optimistic, because we don't rely on funders, we rely on employers.
Good.
And because we use lots and lots of different employers, we spread our risk further. But if most employers are going to have a very, very long recruitment freeze, then that's going to have an impact on all of us, isn't it, really? So I think if we can get back to some kind of new and better normal within the next 6 months, even break, we'll be fine. You know, on a personal level. But if this time next year we still have employers saying we're not recruiting, sorry, then you know, that's going to be a problem, isn't it?
Brilliant. Okay, Ellie's hands up first, then Sam, if that's okay. Ellie, hope for the future?
I was going to say, I think key for, two things. Key for us is investment. So can we secure investment from impact type, you know, organisations and education type investment, where it's less about driving revenue right now and more impact and what we can create. Secondly, I think if this opportunity sort of guarantee and this apprenticeship for every young person can really work, then I think that again will be game changing. But the challenge is how, like, you know, where are these opportunities going to come from, and how is that logistically going to work? So so if those two things align, then I think we've got a fighting chance.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you very much. I've got a point on that, because it's a hard 12:30 now. If anyone needs to drop off, please do. We'll only be on this call for 5 more minutes, if that's okay. Camilla, is that? Yeah, that's fine. Ellie, the one of the funders released a guide to funding during COVID, and it's like Big Society Capital, or one of those big ones. They've supported UnLtd previously, I'm aware of. I might have even got the email from UnLtd, and I'm just claiming it as something I've found. We'll share that afterwards as well. And it's just guide to funding during COVID, and the impact of, there was what social impact investment is going to happen post COVID, which is just really kind of up your street based on that point. Sam, any something you want to say? Your hope for the future?
I was going to back Jane up with the disabled groups, but also our lone parents are really struggling, because where they're now saying the kids have got to go back to school, or at the moment they're not at school, they can't go back to work. So that's one issue. On us for the future, I think we've diversified a little bit, and I think that's the way we're going to have to move forward. So things like we're doing a lot more work on Zoom now to make it more accessible. Our school work, we're actually talking to the schools about what they want. We're doing phone guidance for careers interviews. So it's about how you can actually change what you do to meet the needs of your clients, to keep your contracts. Just keep working at it. I think that's what we've been doing, isn't it? Just gently changing the way that we structure our business to actually meet the needs of our clients, to keep money coming in. So hopefully we'll be okay.
Sounds like you will. I mean, entrepreneurs have to find their solutions in the hardest of places. So I've got a good feeling about us all. Anyone else, any kind of hope for the future, in the short term at least, for their organisation? How they're feeling? Yeah, Lauren?
Yeah,
We're feeling good. So we've been very fortunate in terms of there's been a lot of bids floating around and funding for the employability sector, specifically Liverpool based where we are. So we're good, and it's actually given us chance to experiment and try stuff. So doing things like the online training through Zooms, we never thought people would participate, but they have. And what we've had to get into the mindset of is that we're never going to be able to help everybody. So there's got to be such a blend of how we're going to do things moving forwards, and not to let perfect stop us from doing stuff, because it's not going to be perfect. But also on the side of that is that other people who you're delivering stuff to and working with, they get that too. So it's okay to make mistakes, give stuff a go. And so we're just kind of saying to the team, just go for it, try things, see what works. If it doesn't work, fine. So we're definitely kind of racking our brains about how stuff's going to work, but we're excited about it. And I don't think it will go back to how it's looked before, and in a good way, because we'll be able to reach those people who don't want to come out on the bus. They can join in like this. So yeah,
it's a really good point. There's silver linings there, and this should be the quote of this call: not to let perfect from stop us doing stuff. Like that should be the UnLtd way, right? For this one. Anyone else before we wrap up then, kind of how they're feeling about the future, just kind of hopeful, need a bit of support with something, and yet again, I know we'll all be able to regroup as well down the line, and people who aren't here will be able to join us as well after seeing this video.
Just to say, actually, I don't know if it's helpful for some of us on the call, but we just launched a survey with careers leaders in schools about what careers provision, their anticipation of what careers provision is going to look like within education setting from September. Both in terms of the amount of face time they think they're going to have, how much the blend of sort of digital versus face-to-face, and what types of activities they feel they can deliver, and the types of challenges. So I'm very happy to share. We've had over 100 respond already, so I'm very happy to both invite you to the webinar that we're doing to launch it, but also just share the results as well with you all, in case it helps you plan your businesses going forward.
Would you be able to share that with Camilla, please, as well after?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be really good, Ellie, if you could, when we do the email, maybe if you want to respond all or whatever, and put those details in there. That would be interesting for us to share with some other ventures we work with too, actually.
Brilliant.
Cool, okay.
Thank you. That concludes our call. Any finishing points from UnLtd to wrap up next steps?
Just thank you everyone for joining. Thank you very much, Jacob, for excellently chairing. You've got a great energy to the call. Let's just keep in touch. Really, these calls are absolutely just to do that, and just to remind everyone that they're not on their own. We'll be putting this on YouTube. I'll email around when we do. It takes me ages to work it out, so it might not be today. And basically, encourage you to really, the ball's in your court in terms of UnLtd doesn't really have the resources to facilitate further kind of keeping in touch, so please do just go through it yourselves. And yes, thank you. Any feedback or anything like that would be great. You can email me or Kat about that, and good luck. It's really great to hear the way everyone's dealing with everything. It's not surprising, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And,
anything, Kat?
No, just thank you, everybody. Like, it was absolutely brilliant to hear everybody's stories, and yeah, I do like. I've wrote down Lauren's quote as well, which I'm going to share around the team today, because like you, like we're suddenly thrust into just do everything online now, and like you're just supposed to become a new person, and stuff that you used to do before is supposed to translate to online. And you're right, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I was kicking myself about a session last week that didn't go right at all. And we were like, right, we're never going to do that again online. But at least we tried it. And you just got to keep trying and keep doing it. Yeah. So thank you. I've took a lot out of today. So thank you all for sharing your experiences. I really appreciate it.